Provide you an update on the investigation into the murder of Emily Foster, which occurred last Saturday, September 9th, in the University District. As you may recall, Columbus police officers were dispatched to the 2000 block of Luka Avenue at 3:56 p.m. on a reported stabbing. Upon arrival, officers found Ms. Foster inside the residence suffering from a stab wound. Columbus fire medics arrived and pronounced Ms. Foster deceased at 4:01 p.m. Since receiving that call, as we do for every homicide that occurs, our homicide detectives have been working around the clock to identify and locate Ms. Foster's killer. I'm proud to say, through their diligent work, as well as the work done by several Columbus police personnel, and throughout our partnerships with local, state, and federal partners, detectives were able to identify the killer as Michael J. Brooks II. Detectives filed murder charges against Mr. Brooks on Wednesday night, September 13th. Columbus police personnel immediately began conducting surveillance in an attempt to locate and apprehend Mr. Brooks, until we received a phone call yesterday from the Fayetteville County, Georgia Sheriff's Office, notifying us that Mr. Brooks was in custody in their jurisdiction. For more on that, further details regarding that homicide, I'm going to bring up Deputy Chief Smith-Ware.
Thank you, Chief, and good morning. My name is Deputy Chief Smith-Ware. I'm Deputy Chief over Criminal Investigations for the Columbus Division of Police. I, too, would like to reiterate what Chief Bryant said in thanking the members, the men and women of the Columbus Division of Police, our detectives, the Ohio State University Police, and all of our partners locally with the state and the federal agencies that contributed to this. In addition, I'd like to thank our crime lab personnel who worked overtime to work on this case as well. It really was a collective team effort amongst the whole law enforcement spectrum. In addition, we talked with Fayette County Sheriff's Office this morning, and we'd like to thank them for their work and their help in this as well. So without further ado, we'll talk about the incident. Yesterday morning, we received a phone call from Fayette County, Georgia Sheriff's Office notifying us that shortly before 2 a.m. yesterday morning, their deputies responded to a burglary in progress call at a North Fayette County residence. When they arrived, deputies were notified by the homeowner that they had shot the intruder. The suspect, who they identified as Mr. Brooks, was taken into custody and transported to an area hospital where he remains at this time under law enforcement guard. Mr. Brooks will be charged in Georgia for the burglary and related crimes, and we will work to have him extradited to face his murder charge here as soon as possible. In terms of our investigation, so on the 9th in the afternoon, on Saturday afternoon, we were dispatched to the 2000 block of Iuka. Our officers responded. We had, obviously, it being a Saturday with a home game, there were lots of officers in the area. We had a quick response, and we were able to get information, process the scene in a quick manner. Unfortunately, obviously, Ms. Foster passed away. As we were processing that scene, our crime scene people did an excellent job taking their time locating some forensic evidence that would later come into play. In the ensuing hours and days, we were able to partner with the Ohio State University, corporate private interests that have cameras in the area. A criminal intelligence analyst with Ohio State University was able to locate a photo. From that photo, we were able to find a person who was on a bicycle in the area, who was not wearing pants. We were able to, once we got that time frame, we were able to look through other cameras in the University District area. From that time, we were able to backtrack, show him in the northern part of the University District, and then later in the southern part of the University District. Once we knew the time frame on the murder, obviously that picture was taken afterwards. Once we were able to locate and kind of isolate the time frame, we found a picture from prior to, with our suspect walking into the area wearing sweatpants. Those sweatpants matched sweatpants that we found near the crime scene, and we were able to forensically put him at the location of the crime scene. So excellent work by our criminal intelligence analysts, lab personnel, crime scene personnel, detectives, and officers. Everybody went all out and did a fantastic job with that. Now, in terms of a timeline for the events, obviously the event happened on September 9th. And we charged him on September 13th. We were able to put him in the area of Trotwood, Ohio, over by Dayton, and we linked him to a stolen car in that area. from that stolen car, and that was the morning of the 13th. That stolen car led to another stolen car and an incident at Kettering, Ohio, also near Dayton. From there, we were able to, obviously we then got word that he was in Georgia. So that is the kind of timeline. It all happened on that 13th. To backtrack, we know that Mr. Brooks was released from Franklin County Jail on the evening hours of Friday, September 8th. He was being held there on a felony assault charge. He pled guilty to 2 counts, I believe, of felony fleeing, and then was subsequently released pending his sentencing. He does have a criminal history that spans Columbus Police, some of the area suburbs, Franklin County, some agencies and cities up and down 75, all the way from Detroit, obviously now down to Georgia, and some communities in between. So we are going to have a QR code that's up on the screen now. That is going to be sent to each of you. We are asking for the public's help. Now that the videos and the pictures have been put out, we are asking for help for people in the University District. We have put a request out to look at your video. If you have Ring cameras, if you own a business and you have cameras outside of your business, you have other cameras outside of your home or residence, we're asking for you to look at that picture, look for that person on the bike, look for our suspect, see if we can get additional footage from the area at the time of the crime or around the time of the crime. In addition to that, we're trying to answer a couple questions. One, we scoured our reports looking for a stolen bike report. We couldn't find one. If that is your bike, we would like you to call in and let us know. In addition, we are investigating how Mr. Brooks arrived into the area and was possibly picked up from the area after the crime. All that will be sorted out by our detectives in the ensuing days and weeks. But that's our ask from the public for now, is to look at the QR code. You can send video evidence to that QR code and it'll be uploaded to us. Obviously, if you want to leave your contact information so we can contact you back at a later time, we will do so. And thank you, and I think between the team of us, we will be willing to answer questions. Yes?
Did Ms. Foster know the suspect at all?
At this time, all evidence leads us to believe this was a random event.
Can you explain how rare stabbings are for unknown persons?
Absolutely. And it gave us pause initially as well, because it's common, I guess, law enforcement knowledge. It just tends to be more of a personal attack using a knife instead of many of our homicides or our felony assaults are gun related, and it's less personal. It can be done from farther away. Usually when we have incidents of stabbings, they are a personal attack. You have to know your victim and attacker. But in this case, all of our evidence at this point points to this being a random attack.
Was there anything stolen from Ms. Foster's home during this?
So we're looking into that. I can tell you that we do not believe that robbery was the motive at this time, because there were articles nearby the crime scene of value that were left there. But I do know, and it's been put out there by neighbors, that there was a phone call and that possibly a struggle over a phone. So we are looking into that.
Did Brooks break into the house? Was there evidence of that?
I believe by statutory language, yes. I don't think he was a forced entry, but I think he did come into the house.
Is there any indication that this actually happened on Saturday? I know there were some rumors that this may have happened several days prior.
100% this happened on Saturday.
So by asking for photos and for videos, do you think his alleged crime spree, may be larger than what you're aware of right now?
We're not sure, and it's always dangerous from an investigative standpoint to try to narrow your focus too soon. So I think we have to keep that option open. And again, a lot of it is about the timeline as well, about establishing travel into the scene and then out of the scene. But at this point, I think we're very comfortable with the facts that we have and the charge that we have. But we always want to have that complete picture.
Is he from this area or Georgia?
We don't know what the connection is with Georgia, if there is a connection. However, he is from Columbus.
Was he released from jail on the 8th on bond, or was he done serving his sentence? Do we know that yet?
So there's an intersection of a couple different things here. One, I think initially he was on a parole hold. And then the second part is, I believe at a certain point, the parole hold ended and he began serving time under the pending felony assault charge. I don't know the exact dates, but I do know that at some point he pled guilty to amended charge of felony fleeing, I believe. And we can get the exact particulars on that. And at that point, he was awaiting sentencing, and I believe he bonded out at that point based on that from there.
Is there any concern that somebody, in looking at his court docket, he was charged with an F1 felonious assault, he pled that down to an F3 felony fleeing, his bond was $10,000 and he was able to bond out pending sentencing. Is there any concern that his bond wasn't revoked at that time, given his criminal history, and that could have potentially prevented this from happening?
There's always concerns, but that's more of a public question. Obviously, from a police standpoint, we have to deal with the facts as they are. In terms of public policy and bonds and everything like that, I think that's up for the public and the judges to decide.
Backing up a bit, you said that you don't expect robbery to be the motive, correct? What are possible motives in this case, and how exactly did you rule out robbery?
We don't know what the motive is. In terms of the motive, and technically, like I said, statutorily, if we talk about, if I use force to grab a phone out of your hand, hypothetically, that could constitute a robbery. So, statutorily, he may be indicted someday for a robbery if that were the fact pattern that we proved out. But in terms of it was that theft, or a robbery, a motive, the only reason it gives us pause on that is because there were items of significant value, laptops, some other personal, purses and stuff like that, in close proximity to the scene. And they were left there, and they didn't appear to have been gone through, from what our crime scene and our detectives are relaying. So, at this point, I think we're going to keep looking at it, but I think it would be jumping the gun for us to say that it was robbery related.
What is his current condition?
He is in serious, I believe, but stable condition. I think he was transported in critical. But at last that we heard, I think he's serious but stable.
Do you know what the timeline is as to when he may possibly be back in Franklin County?
I do not.
Did you find any evidence of him snooping around people's houses in that neighborhood before or after?
I don't know in terms of evidence. I think, we've heard the same thing you've heard. I mean, I think some of the neighbors were putting out that was, kind of the rumor. As we go through the investigation, hopefully we can, confirm or deny that.
You mentioned the partnership between Columbus Police, Ohio State, looking into the forensic evidence and the camera evidence. Just, are you able to tell me how important those partnerships are, seeing these agencies work together to solve this crime quickly?
It's absolutely important. I think, especially in a case where the nexus, the relationship is random, which doesn't happen very often. I think it's really important that everybody came together and we're able to use all of our resources combined to really step up to the plate and solve the crime.
Last question.
Ohio State University announced that there'd be essentially a step up in police patrols and law enforcement vigilance in and around campus in the university district. I wanted to ask if Columbus Police might be contributing to that as well, especially during home games, given this incident and others within that area.
So I think, Chief, you want to answer this, or should I refer this to Deputy Chief Jeffrey?
Yes, this is part of a program that's been in existence for some time. We call it crime interdiction, where the university funds over time Columbus police officers patrol in that area. So this is just an extension of that. It's been a great program towards extending that program.
Thank you.
I also want to add that when you talk about partnerships, it's not just the Ohio State, it's not just one particular neighborhood. We're partnering across the city to ensure that we're able to solve these crimes as best as possible. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.